going to do a reading with the Shadowscapes Tarot deck, which is this deck here. So maybe that's one you haven't seen before. The imagery is kind of dreamlike, fae-like, delicate, a bit surreal, a bit light and floaty, and magical, really. So I'm just shuffling the cards to make sure we've got clean, clear start to this reading. And then I'm gonna ask a question, and I've just one card just like flew out, so I'm gonna save that card, see what it says at the end, because if a card wants to make itself known, that is always something that we need to listen to. Okay, so the question that I'm going to ask in this reading is, what does my body need me to know? Okay, and it's a question around like physical, and it could be emotional too, health. Yeah, so if there's something going on in your body that feels uncomfortable, that doesn't feel right, yeah, it's like that kind of like uncomfortable niggling inside. I'm going to focus specifically on physical, but if you don't have anything physical and you've only got something emotional, then you can always relate it to that instead. Yeah, so it's like kind of, if you have a feeling and uncomfortable feeling somewhere within your body, maybe your shoulder hurts, maybe your neck hurts, maybe your stomach hurts internally and there's some kind of like prickling or heat there. Maybe it's like the small of your back feels like it's on fire. Maybe you have pain and tightness around your rib area, wherever it is, whatever it is. Okay, this reading is to address that. So it's like, what is this discomfort need me to know? Okay, is the question. Yeah, what does my body, what does this pain, this discomfort need me to know, so I can move past it and I can heal it. So we're looking for the answer so that we can heal this this cry, this disturbance, this hurt. Okay. And 2 cards. Okay. I've actually got 3 cards that came out. And then with the card that flew out before, it's quite interesting. Every single card is from the Cups suit. So the first card is the 3 of Cups. So this card is when your body started hurting in this way. Yeah, what was it trying to tell you in terms of what was like wrong in your life, going on in your life at that time, yeah, that you ignored, so that then this thing manifested physically. Yeah, so in this card we have 3 mermaids underwater, and their tails are like twisted around each other, and they're holding these golden goblets full of magical liquid, and they are contained within a glass orb or a water bubble. Yeah, they're contained within this thing. It looks a bit like a crystal ball, and it also looks a bit like the moon, and it looks a bit like a flower as well. Yeah, so It could be a flower. It could be the moon. It could be a crystal ball. Or it could be an air bubble under the water. So I'm looking at this card and I'm saying, okay, so there were three things happening, yeah? There were three things that were emotionally disturbing at the time that this happened, that pushed your body then to have to communicate with you physically eventually, because you didn't hear what these things were. So there were three emotional triggers in your life, yeah, three things, three traumas, three upsets, three stresses in your life at the time that this manifested. And these things upset you a lot. Like, this reading is all cups, so it's all about emotions, it's all about the heart, it's all about love and relationships, yeah. So the three things that happened really unsettled your sense of self because they attacked your heart, yeah. They got you emotionally. They were like knives in the heart. And like the emotions that you were carrying there in these beautiful golden goblets, they kind of all got tangled up. Like these three things that happened, they all got tangled up and twisted together and complicated. So it wasn't just one thing on its own. It was like, no, there were three things, but then they got tangled up, and so they became this bigger one thing, and you then got trapped within this, like, this bubble, this globe of emotion, yeah, so that you could no longer get out and breathe freely in a different space. You were contained within this tight little circle, this tiny little circumference of space, yeah, that trapped you. And so it was you and your emotions were so intense, yeah, they were all stirred up like in a big stormy sea, and stuff started to spill out, yeah. So your like emotional well-being was in these in your cups, and it started to spill out. And as it spilled out, there was a lot of weeping and a lot of lamenting and a lot of just unease and unrest and upset. And then this image now is kind of like saying that basically, like, you couldn't believe your eyes, yeah, like it looks like an eye socket if you think about it, yeah. So like an eyeball, and then the kind of muscle tendrils that connect the eye into the body and the head and the whatever, and the blood vessels around it, yeah, it's like really reminiscent of an eye. So it's like kind of, it's almost like you couldn't believe your eyes. You couldn't believe that this was happening, that this could happen to you, that these people could do this to you, and yet they did. And it was the disbelief at, like, how could they behave like that? How could they treat me like that? How could they speak to me like that? How could they not see me, not realize me, not think about how this all might be affecting me? That was what got to you, what tripped you up so much, because it was the shock and the trauma of, like, not being able to process things because you just couldn't believe what you were seeing. It was just too much. And then moving forwards into the next card, which is like, then what happened next, so more of like, kind of like, that was how it all began, and then this is what happened next. The card is the Ace of Cups, and this card shows you as really small. You're small, you've shrunken down. It's like there's one cup in this card, and it's really big, and it's like it's silver, but perhaps it's made out of metal, so it's cold and it's hard and it's steely, and it's not very friendly. It's kind of, it's almost like it's made of metal, like a sword or a knife or something. And it's full of this like just still, like the liquid within the cup looks like a lake at night, yeah, when you can't see below the surface. So it's like a dark horse, this dark water, because you know it has life in it, you know it has things are growing in it, things are living in it, things are going on beneath the surface, but you can't touch any of it, you can't feel any of it. So it's like this space that you entered into was really disassociated, yeah, it was really like numb and dead and cold, and it's almost like you shut your heart down because you couldn't cope otherwise. And it's a really isolated space. It's like you're sitting on the edge of this cup and you're naked and you're tiny compared to this cup, because your emotions have become that big and that powerful that they are so much bigger than you. So you're like this tiny speck within the big busyness of your emotion. Yeah, it's like there's this tiny little fairy here, which is you. And then there's all this like these fish, like these fish are swimming around the bottom. These ones are swimming around the bottom like sharks, yeah. They're kind of like cruising around your cup, trying to get in, yeah. They're poking you. They're trying to get in. They're trying to get one of their knocks on target, yeah, to provoke you, to injure you, to hurt you, because you've detached, you've disappeared, you've gone off into your own silent, quiet space in order to like tend to your wounds and put yourself back together again. And they can't handle that, these sharks. So they're kind of like they're circling you, waiting for a chance to attack, waiting for you to let your guard down. And every so often they'll try and get in. And it's annoying. It's really annoying them that you're not responding, that you're not unreachable, that they can't make you come back and be the way that you were before. And yet there are these other golden fish above the goblet that are kind of like, they're coming out of it and they're starting to float up. And they're gold instead of grey. And they're bigger. And they're more powerful. And this is your intuition rising, yeah? Your intuition is coming out of you, like your heart has been broken open by the wounding that you received. And your eyes have been so shocked that they have shut down, and you've gone inside and you've closed everything off. And you've shut the world out, and now you're in this silent space, and this goblet is perhaps like a looking glass, yeah? Like, you know, when you can do scrying and you have like a bowl of water, and you look into the bowl and you see what you can see beneath the surface, and it will show you images of like something happening in a different place, or something that's happened in the past, something that might happen in the future. And it's almost like that's where you are. You're by this like dark water, this kind of magical well. And you're going there and you're looking in the water and you're trying to figure out what's going on, what to do next, and trying to see clearly again, really. And as you're doing that, these golden fish of intuition are growing and coming out of you, and you're healing and becoming stronger again. And there are other companions here. There are like four other fairies. There are 4 other fairies in the background. 3 of them are clothed and are wearing purple clothing and are flying around, and they're female and then they're quite confident. and they look like they're trying to be helpful, like they're trying to encourage your intuition, these fish of intuition, to go on, go up, be free, go find the sea. And one of them is there by you, sitting on the edge of the cup, like kind of leaning over you, trying to encourage you, trying to give you guidance, trying to teach you. And then like hiding behind her back is another little naked fairy who is like the twin of you, the mirror image of you. And it's like your other self, yeah. So the two parts of you, there's the one sitting on the side of the cup who's alone and in contemplation and just like kind of having a retreat and a time out in order to put themselves back together again. And then there's this other one hiding behind the fairy's back. And this sprite is trying to decide whether she wants to come out or not, whether she wants to join you or not, whether it's safe to play with you, it's safe to unite with you. And it's all about getting those two parts to come together again. And that's where the healing is, and that's where the growing is. It's in trusting yourself and letting bigness come out of you, like letting those fish, those giant goldfish or giant carp come out of you. You have to trust yourself in order to release, like you're tiny and you have to trust yourself a lot in order to release something that big. And you have to let other people in, like you have to let these other fairies help you, because otherwise you're all alone and you're just looking in the dark water and you're seeing, but maybe you're not seeing clearly because you don't have perspective, or maybe you're not seeing anything at all because you need guidance and you need encouragement. So even though this is all about peering into your own heart, your own emotional depths, and really getting up close and personal with what's there, you also have to then allow what comes up, what you are seeing has to then translate into what to do next. Yeah, so the seeing has to translate into a knowing, which then has to translate into a doing. Maybe you need to let other people help you do that, and that doesn't necessarily have to be like a fairy guide or an angel guide or an ascended master or anything. It's like fairies and angels are people here on earth as well. Yeah, like, you know, some people relate to angels and think that they have kind of like an angelic energy, and you know, they used to be an angel and they've come down here to be a human. Other people feel like they're a bit more fae, so they were a fairy and they've come down here to be a human. Other people, maybe they think they're a mer person and they've come down here to be a human. You know, there are lots and lots of different energies that we could connect with here, you know, and animals as well. So if you find a person who, and there's three here, yeah, who is your version of that, yeah. So you could say, I don't know, for example, your acupuncturist, yeah, might be a dragon companion for you. Your physiotherapist might be a bear companion for you. Your counselor might be an angel companion for you, yeah. It's like letting the possibility of three people come in to help you who have these different energies, yeah. And so maybe you relate to the fairies in the card, or maybe you need a different energy, but it's like people that have that lightness and that brightness and that otherworldliness about them, yeah, so that you know that what they're telling you and what they're practicing has come from a higher space that is being channeled through all of their lives, not just their life here on earth. And not everybody has that awareness, so not everybody is then able to live and act and do from that vantage point. And this card is encouraging you to find people that are working from that vantage point so that they can help you up your anti so that you are better at working from that vantage point, or just enable you to work from that vantage point from the very beginning, as in if you have not been doing so already. And so maybe you haven't been doing so already, but you always known that you had that within you, but you suppressed it, or you haven't believed in it because no one around you has supported that side of you. But now is the time to let that part of you come out, because the wounding that you received, that blew your heart apart, that opened you up, that caused you, to have so many emotions swirling around and stuck all at once, that woke you up. Yeah, that was a new beginning. That was a new you emerging. Yeah, like a seed being planted in you, a brutal seed. And it sent you to this place, which is a quiet place, a dark place, and a kind of isolated, lonely place inside, in order to get your stuff together and figure out what to do next and start doing that. And then the next card is the Knight of Cups, and this is what's coming in the future. And so this card is basically saying, if you do the work, the deep inner work, and it has a lot to do with like looking and seeing clearly, yeah, then you will emerge as this Knight of Cups. Yeah, you will emerge as a knight who is well on their way to being a figurehead, yeah, to being a queen or a king. The knight is like, he's studying and he's being apprenticed, yeah, and he has a certain level of knowledge, but he's still working for other people, so he's not like the highest authority. So maybe it's like you need to find gurus or leaders or people that you respect to follow in the footsteps of, and if you do that, then you can go on a crusade. And this crusade is, you take your learning and your insight and your information and you take it out into the world. Yeah. So this character here is sitting on a beautiful white horse, by white unicorn, and he's confident and he's grounded. Yeah, he has like solid foundations. He's sitting on this charging horse and he's not falling off, and he's got one arm around the horse's neck. Yeah, and he's kind of almost balancing on this horse in a way. He's riding it in a really strong, heroic way. And around his head is this kind of orb, which is making me think of the eyeball again. Yeah, it's the eyeball link all the way through. Which kind of ties through with the images of all three cards, because you've got the eyeball here, and then you've got this cup, which is a bit like a seeing eye as well, and then you've got this eye around his head here, and he's coming out of the water. Yeah, so he's leaving this turbulent sea of emotion. He's on the surface and he's riding the waves on this confident white horse. So this white horse of spirituality, yeah, he's like astride that path now. That is his vehicle, is that bright white light of spirituality. And he's confidently riding that path. But this unicorn has like black feet and black ears. Yeah, so it's like, it's still a mixture of light and dark. He's not just all light and airy fairy. He's like, in his feet, he knows the darkness, yeah. And his ears are like open to the darkness. He can hear the darkness. He's got black eyes too, so he can see the darkness, you know. So, but he lives the light. And the man on his back, is like, he's dressed in yellow and brown. So the brown is to do with his roots, yeah, like a tree, like a trunk, being grounded. And yeah, the yellow is to do with the intuition. So it's like he is following the path of his intuition. He is following his instinct, the things that he feels inside his belly, and he is riding towards the light. Yeah, we have this like golden orb shining in the distance with the cup in it, and it's like this is the light that he's following, the light at the end of the tunnel. And it's like the card is saying, if you do the work of the Ace of Cups, then you will exit this storm of emotion, yeah, which is manifested as physical discomfort, and you'll be able to ride onwards towards the light. So it's not going to be a short journey, yeah, because it's like, well, this thing happened a while ago, so you've already been well away on this journey. Yeah, you haven't just started it, even if it feels like maybe you have. You've been on this journey for quite a long time. You're now here in this weird gestation phase, in this kind of trapped in place phase, and having to look inwards and having to reassess your life and what you want in it and your thoughts and your feelings, in order to kind of take stock before you go out again. And it's like all these things are circling you. So these are all the bits about your former life, yeah, and they're kind of like they're circling you as you rest in this space and hide and try and be quiet and silent and get your stuff together and figure out like what you need and how you're thinking and how you're feeling and what all of these emotions are. And there's all of these things from your former life are calling you back, yeah, kind of like trying to get you to go back to who you were before, to where you were before, even though it was kind of the stuff that broke you, because that's why you're here and that's why this happened. And the trick is to sit there and not be distracted by this, and to instead listen to this, to these new things, these new little fish of creativity that keep flying out of your head, yeah, these little insights that's sparking out, and just allow them to float there and to swim around and then to kind of go off. Don't just discard them and forget them. If they appeal to you, grab onto them, take them on board and integrate them into what you want to do next. Like reading a book and making highlighted notes about what you want to remember after you finish the book, so that you can then start applying that to your life. So don't just look in here and read the book. It's like make the highlighted notes so that you can keep that insight and information and pay it forwards. And then if you do that, you will get here. You will get to be a knight. Yeah, it's like you moved up the ladder. You're more powerful. You have more choices available to you, and then you will be able to ride out of this storm of emotion and this shitstorm of crap that's been going on and happening. You'll be able to ride out of that towards a brighter future where the sun is shining and it's beckoning you forwards and it's a positive force. And he totally believes that he will leave the ocean. Yeah, he's not scared of it as it's like raging all around him with all these waves. He's not scared of drowning. He's not scared of falling over and becoming submerged again. He's like, no, he's charging out of there. He's like, no, this is behind me. I know this stuff now. I understand this stuff. I've like soaked in this stuff for so long. I'm not scared of it anymore. I can ride through it and it won't touch me. I've been there. I've done the work. I have confronted my shadow. And then the card that flew out at the beginning, which this reading wanted us to know, as a kind of a card that sits on top of. Yeah, so this is kind of like the past, the present, and the future, yeah? So it's the past, the present, and the future. Yeah. And then this card sits on top. It's kind of like a bonus card. And it's like if you go through all of this, this is what you get as a gift. This is like a treat, an extra thing that is given to you. And this card is the Six of Cups. So again, it's all about the heart, and it's all about emotions and relationships. But this card is exquisitely beautiful and really positive and hopeful and inspiring and motivating, because this card shows a tea party held outside at night in the forest. So we're in a magical, enchanted forest, and there's a woman, a girl, and she's dressed in white. She has a red ribbon in her hair, which is tied back, and she's pouring tea out into cups, and she has companions with her, and there are two bears. One's a teddy bear, and I think one is a bear, and there are two rabbits who are dressed up, a male and a female rabbit, and then there are like quite a few pixies and fairies that are kind of scattered around, and a lot of them are hidden in the undergrowth so that you can barely see them. And then there are these fish again, these golden fish from the middle card. They're kind of like swimming freely in a stream now. So they're kind of like, they're happily on their way, and they're in their perfect habitat, and they're swimming freely. And the cups in the reading, five of the cups in this reading are teacups from this little tea party, and then there's one gold cup down here which belongs to the fish. And it's kind of, this card really is the light at the end of the tunnel. It's like this light that you are following here is this light that manifests here. And it's like, if you're listening to this reading now, in the time when I am giving it, then I think this card will really, really resonate with you in a really deep way. Like, this card resonates with me really deeply at the moment. It's kind of making me feel quite emotional almost, yeah, because it's like now we're in the kind of like beginning-ish of, we're 1 week into May 2020, and we've been in quarantine for 8 weeks, yeah, from this coronavirus, and we're self-isolating, and we're being careful, and we're staying inside and not going out so that we, you know, can stay safe and keep other people safe. And so we haven't had much social contact for a while. So we look at this whole reading in relationship to this situation, as well as like the question that I asked, which was free from time. Yeah, it was like, when you're watching it now, it relates to that. If we look at this question and we like look at it in terms of right now, how does it relate to you, on top of the level of which I've just done the reading, then it's kind of like these three things happened previously, prior to quarantine. Yeah, these things happened in your life. Maybe they happened a week ago, maybe they happened a month ago, like, as in maybe they happened at the beginning of March, maybe they happened in December, or maybe they happened a year ago or a few years ago, yeah, but these three emotional things happened, and these were not about the virus or the pandemic, yeah, these were separate things that happened in your life, like, you know, there's something really bad happening in a relationship that was like really closely connected to you. So maybe it was like you fell out with one of your parents, or you were betrayed by a partner, or friend, or you know, maybe you lost your job, or you experienced you know, some kind of like malpractice at work or something, and then you had a difficult decision to make. Maybe you had an accident, maybe you were in an accident, or maybe someone died, or you know, you read into that whatever it is for you, but these things were personal to you, not part of what's going on in the collective with the whole world. Because the thing with the virus and the pandemic is it's like, it's not personal to us, it's like everybody is experiencing this pandemic. What's personal to us is how it is affecting us. So these things happened, and then you kind of got forced inside for a time, yeah. And then we can also apply this card to the time of quarantine, where we've been inside and we haven't been allowed to go out, and we haven't been connecting with people out there physically in real life, and maybe we haven't actually really been connecting with people in the kind of, you know, via the internet or whatever. Maybe we haven't been speaking to people on the phone. Maybe we haven't been like having video calls with them because they've been too busy, or they just weren't into that, because they were having, you know, their own kind of like mini crises or major crises, or because you just didn't feel able to be in contact with them, or maybe they didn't ask and you didn't ask. So you've been mostly isolated, yeah, and dealing with stuff alone, a bit like the hermit going off into the forest to kind of like do that deep contemplation, or you know, like Jesus going into the desert for like 40 days and 40 nights. It's a bit like that, and we have been in this environment and this quarantine for around about that time as well. And depending on when you went into it and everything, you know, some of us have been in it for longer now, but you know, it's that length of time, which is a long time to have to adopt such a different behaviour, be so isolated. But it's like, because of doing that work and because of being isolated, you will then come out, you will have rode this storm of emotions and thoughts and feelings, and being so triggered, and shadow side rising up to you know, confront you in the face, like with all of your past life stuff. All of this is coming up to be dealt with, and if you do the work and deal with it, then you will get to ride out of it and you'll be okay. So that's what the reading's basically saying. It's like, yeah, this thing's happened, and it's calling on you to like sit and look in the mirror, look at yourself, stare at yourself, and really, really look. Close your eyes and sense and feel what is going on inside, what your body needs you to know, what your mind needs you to know, what you're always running away from. Like, to sit in silence and not be distracted and not do anything at all, and bring your mind back to nothing, to nothing, to nothing, to nothing, and then hold that space, and then allow it to bring forth information. Not information about what am I going to make for dinner, or information about, you know, oh, I should phone so and so later. Like, not that kind of stuff. You need to let that stuff go. That's the stuff that you say when you come back to center. And then after that is what else comes up. So maybe you get a memory of when you were 5 years old and you were outside with your mother in the garden, and you were planting seeds together to grow some flowers, and you were really excited, and you were kind of jumping up and down, and as you were jumping up and down, you accidentally like threw the packet of seeds, and they went everywhere, and so all the seeds got wasted and lost and like scattered into the ground, like higgledy-piggledy, instead of in these neat little lines that you were supposed to be doing. And you were upset because you'd lost the seeds, and they were precious to you, and you were so excited about being allowed to do this grown-up job. And instead of being comforted yeah, and told that it was okay and don't worry, and you know, we can get some more and it's fine, the seeds will be okay anyway, they'll grow, so they're not gonna, you know, they're not gonna be wasted and they're not gonna die. Instead of that, you got told off and you got in trouble, you got shouted at and slapped because you'd wasted the seeds and it was a waste of money and it was disrespectful, and why are you always so careless, why don't you slow down, why don't you stop and think? And you're reminded of that memory, and you felt so bad at the time, and you were so upset, and you felt so guilty and so wrong and useless, and you've carried that feeling with you inside and always felt like that to an extent, but not realized it. And this image comes forward in the silent space. And it's about going back and repeating that process again and again and again, and letting all of these memories come forward, yeah, all of these images, and collecting up the broken parts of you, the parts of you that felt they weren't good enough, yeah, they weren't valuable, they weren't lovable, by collecting them all together again and putting them back and putting them inside your heart, so that you can heal, so that you can be whole, so that your adult self can love them. Because, you know, they were little, they were young, they didn't know. And even if they did know, they were just being excited. They were just being passionate. They were just being true to themselves. They were just speaking their truth as it was at the time, or they were carried away by emotion. But they weren't bad, they weren't evil, they weren't wrong. They don't deserve to feel guilty or ashamed. They shouldn't live in prison for the rest of their lives, and yet that's exactly what's happened, because you've unknowingly allowed that to happen by going, oh, I'm bad, and then that becomes an item that you carry on your back in your backpack forevermore. And every time that you upset someone, or every time that you do something wrong and you get told off, because it's so uncomfortable to deal with it and process it in the here and now, and most of us don't even know how to do that, so we don't have the tools to do it, or we don't have the time to do it, or we're just too damn scared to do it, because, you know, coming away from the situation and sitting down and going into meditation and feeling those emotions and telling yourself it's okay, and sitting within the discomfort and letting it pass through you in its own sweet time is really difficult work. It's not something that, you know, you stick your hand up and go, please, yes, please, can I do that? It's like, no, we have to make a conscious effort to do those things, because otherwise it's much nicer to just, you know, watch Netflix and watch a cozy movie, watch a romantic comedy about like other people, and you know, and ending up with the love of their dreams, or the job of their dreams, or, you know, having a perfect happy family, or a wonderful exciting adventure. You know, we distract ourselves with these fictional stories about other people achieving perfection in their lives, and by doing so we're not allowing ourselves to get any closer to actually achieving some level of harmony and happiness in our own lives. And this card here is our reward for being in isolation and being in quarantine, whether that's an isolation independently of this pandemic that our physical situation just kind of like pushed us into, and we didn't have any choice, because many of us have quarantined ourselves prior to this quarantine, yeah, or people who have had big stuff happen in their lives. So if you experienced a bereavement and you lost somebody really close to you, really fundamental in your life, then you probably self-isolated for a while, because you just couldn't deal with it emotionally. You couldn't deal with going out in society, but being around people. You couldn't talk to anyone. It was just too much. And so you isolated yourself until you felt stronger, and you had to do a lot of personal work, a lot of reading, a lot of self-soothing, a lot of sleeping before you could go out again. Yeah, and there's lots of different things that could have happened to you that would have led you to choose to take a time out, yeah, to isolate yourself from people, from society, from everything, and just be in a quiet, still, safe space with yourself. And if you haven't gone through that before, well, this quarantine has kind of given you a taster of that, depending on your personal quarantine experience. Like if you're quarantining and you have a family and there's a lot of you, maybe it's not so quiet and peaceful, maybe it's noisy, maybe it's stressful, and maybe it's busy all the time, and you haven't had a moment to yourself. But you haven't been able to go out and do your own stuff like you did before. And this card is saying that there will be a chance to celebrate after all of this is over. That you will be able to get together with your people, yeah. And maybe they're different people to the people that you thought were your people before. You know, this is an eclectic collection of people at this tea party. There are 2 rabbits dressed in clothing, and there are 2 bears, and one of them is like a real bear, so a wild creature, and you know, maybe a bit temperamental, a bit ferocious, a bit like, you know, don't challenge me or I might like kind of club you. And the other one is a teddy bear, which is a soft, squishy creature who's all about comfort and love, and who will be your loyal companion and do anything for you. So there's like a mixture of people here, and then there are these like fae creatures in the background as well, who are like holding space for you. Yeah, so they're holding the light over this tea party, and they're kind of encouraging you and supporting you. So maybe it's like your people in so they're like your people in the spiritual realm, and then you've got your people in the physical realm. But your people in the physical realm are kind of, they're looking to you for leadership here. Like you're the one that's hosting the tea party, you're the one that's pouring the cups, and they look like you look like you're okay now, like you're stronger now. You're like in the mothering role, and they look like they need mothering, like they need comfort and they need support. And your intuition, the intuition that you have given birth to in this period of time, which is now, this intuition that is coming out of you now, this experience that you're going through, this pain that you are suffering, yeah, this then becomes this river of intuition flowing past this dinner party, which is basically saying that intuition that you gleaned in the now will then become your most powerful, potent tool to be able to help other people with their healing. So you'll be able to collect other people together and invite them to a tea party with you, and then use that intuition to help them and to support them and to free them. And this is your reward, is that you get to emerge strong and victorious. So you ride out of this stormy sea with a purpose and with a clearer vision. Like you can see clearly now, you know where you're going, you're confident, you're being led. And then you arrive in this forest, in this place where you can stop and rest and sit down and have tea and gather your new tribe around you and guide them and advise them and help them. And you can help them go through this same awakening and healing, but together in communion. You know, they are together in a community with your support and your leadership. So for them, that journey will be more gentle. Yeah, they will have your support the whole time. So it won't be like this. It won't be so lonely. It will be like this. So just trust that what's going on for you right now is a message, and it's calling on you to take some time to just sit still, to be quiet with yourself without the distraction of anything else. No other person talking to you. Nothing that you're watching or listening to or reading. Just sit there, doing nothing. Don't even do anything, just sit there. Cross-legged on the floor with your hands in your lap, or lie on the floor with a blanket over you. And just wait, and wait, and wait, and wait, and allow enough time to pass, and build up your tolerance levels and see how long you can lie there and how long you can wait, and don't distract yourself with anything. Just keep, every time your thoughts drift off and you're like, whoa, I disappeared for 5 minutes there, bring them back again. Every time you think you might be falling asleep, wake yourself back up again. Come back to center. And just, create a mantra for yourself like, I am here, I am listening. Or, I am sorry, please forgive me. How can I help you? Whatever makes sense to you, say those words to yourself. And then afterwards, when you come back from that space, and see if you can stay there for like half an hour to an hour, and after you come back from that space, and I guess it depends on how long it takes you to get into that place. So when you're first starting off, you need to first of all build up your tolerance levels. So you need to be able to lie there still and quiet for a certain amount of time, and it takes a while at the beginning to be able to get down to that peaceful, quiet place anyway. At the beginning, your mind is going to be really busy, and you're going to be worrying about twitching here and an ache here and a pain here, and you're going to be fidgeting and trying to move around. It takes a while to settle and to be comfortable enough to just stop. And then once you have settled, then it's like building up the muscle of that space and seeing how long you can spend in that space without too much distraction. How long you can sit in that space so that you're just floating and the information kind of like passes through you. So you go back to childhood and you see this image, and then you go somewhere else and you see this image, and somewhere else and you see this image, and you just let them all float around your head, and maybe one of them starts screaming at you, and you just let it. And then when you wake up afterwards, when you come in, then just sit up and write it down. Write down what was most vivid within that experience, the thing that you still remember now that you're kind of like fully conscious. A bit like when you have a dream and you write it down. It's like you're not going to remember all the details, but you're going to remember enough. And the more that you make the effort to write it down and take notice of it, the more your mind will then recall that information and provide it for you, because the mind is like a dog, and it's like it wants to please you. And so the more you kind of like ask it to perform for you and then reward it, the more enthusiastic it will be about doing that, and the more easily that information will come. Whereas if you don't pay attention to it, then it's not going to try and help you. It's not going to give you that stuff, because it knows that that effort will just be wasted. And listen to that stuff and let it help you do the work, and see what comes up. And don't forget that the central card right now is telling you that you might need some support. So find that support to guide you. You don't have to do it all alone. I think it's possible to do it all alone, but it's quicker not to, and it's easier not to. It's much gentler not to. It doesn't hurt as much when you don't do it alone. So I hope that reading was insightful for you and helpful. I hope that you can apply that information to your situation in your life. And if you would like to get a reading with me personally, then you can find me at my website, lemonrosepetals.com, or on Instagram at lemonrosepetals. And you can contact me via both of those portals. I And if you would like me to do a video reading here on YouTube on a particular question, just leave it in the comments below, and I will do a reading. Okay, and I will see you next time.